So without further ado,
it's time for a good
let's start things off
Q&A,
with a
MMA
little on the
fans.
nose, shall we? Yeah. I like it this way. I feel fresh. I just had this unbelievable prime ice pop, courtesy of my good friend Logan Paul and KSI. I don't really know KSI, but I know Logan Paul. I mean, we're mad cute together. Ice pop flavor. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Get out of your seats
this
and
is just,
on your feet because
I'm not getting paid for this, by the way. It's just
Ariel Helwani.
unbelievable. I feel refreshed. Bit of a stomach thing. No, I'm kidding. We got a lot of answers for your questions. So without further ado, our moderator, Lewis, has been working very hard to get us these questions. I mean, I feel a little bit bad when I ask him to do this a little early because honestly, he's used to delivering them around 2:30, but mensch that he is, he makes it happen for us. And so without further ado, let's get to the questions. I'm curious, what is on your mind? This is from Hugo Knows. Oh, I got a little editor's note here. Okay. He says, I'm going to read this. This question was chronologically number one, and I'm going to start honoring question one as first person up like it used to be, unless it's stinker. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's a mensch move from Lewis. First person to write in should go first. I'm 100% on board with this. So Hugo Knows says, ¿Qué onda, mi amigo Ariel? Yes. Me gusta bailar, me gusta cantar. Could we get some real truth? Right off the bat. Why there will be no media in this week's card? Also, do you think the end of the year card will have 3 titles as they end the year with a bang? Thanks to the whole crew for all the great work. Okay, so everyone is so up in arms over this thing. In case you didn't hear, it has been reported, our friend Alex, I don't want to butcher his last name. Do you know his last name, GC? I feel like you know his last name.
I feel like I'm going to butcher it too. Buchanan,
yes. He reported that the card this weekend at the world's most famous Apex is going to be closed off not only to the public, which isn't so crazy, but to the media as well. It's strictly a private affair. This is the card headlined by Mackenzie Dern versus Yan Xiaonan. And this has sent everyone into a tizzy. Now, what I was told from one source, just one, that's why I don't feel really comfortable like saying this is definitive, but it's a very good source, very close to the event. I was told that it has something to do with Mark Zuckerberg. Now, is he renting it out just for him, just for his friends? Doesn't seem like something he would do. Are they renting it out to do something like some sort of metaverse event or so? I can't quite nail that down. And so we'll see. And maybe that's why Dana White was being coy about it. When he has an announcement to make, when he has something up his sleeve, he doesn't just like to blurt it out, give it to the media. He was saying, I want to give you guys the night off and all this stuff. Obviously, that's not the case. But I was told via one of the people involved on the card that what they were told was it's because of Mark Zuckerberg, who you may have heard is really into MMA. He's been training MMA. Do we DM sometimes? Is he a big fan of the program? Sure. Who am I to name drop? But it seems like it's something to do with him. What exactly that is up in the air. Now, if you're asking my feelings on this, here's how I feel about it. I feel like as unique and cool as, let's just say, let's say this is the reason, right? Which I'm saying right now, I don't have it 2 sources. I don't have it, but we're shooting here. This is what we do. We're not, it's different. I know people are going to run with it, but I'm telling you right now, we're shooting. Let's just say this is it. As cool as it may be to be part of some sort of metaverse thing, whatever, don't you feel as though if you're a headliner on this card, if you're a fighter on this card, and look, you guys are asking me about it. I'm not making a stink. I'm not tweeting up a storm about it, but I do kind of feel like they deserve a little better, right? And there's a few factors at play. Oh, your family can't be there if this is the case. If it's truly closed off, and they're not allowing exceptions, family can't be there, friends can't be there, spouse can't be there, significant other can't be there, mom can't be there, dad can't be there, brother, sister, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. You know what I mean? Feels like a bummer. You're fighting in the, Premier League of the mixed martial arts world. Feels like that's something that should be allowed, especially in this almost post-pandemic age that we're living in. That's one thing. The other thing is, and maybe they don't care. You're not going to get your interviews after, or your scrum, your little press conference. You're not going to get that. Of course, you're going to get the interview. Listen, is it something to get all up in arms about? Maybe not. It isn't the deepest card of all time. To me, the bigger thing, and this, I was talking to a manager about this on Monday, it's just another example. Let's just say this is for the coolest reason possible. Let's say this is for something else. Other theories were thrown on my way. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't even matter. Another example of the fighters not having a say. Because if there was some sort of fighter rep and the UFC wanted to close off the event that they're competing in, close it off to the media and the public, how it would go if this was already in place. Hey, we're going to talk to the fighter rep. Hey, we're thinking about doing this. How do the 24 fighters on this card feel about this situation? And you go back, you poll them, you ask them, majority, whatever the case, whatever system is in place. But it's another example of how the biggest league in MMA, with 500 or so fighters, the fighters have no say. Throw on another sponsor on that uniform, you won't get a cut. Close off the event to the media and the fans, you won't have a say. Sign this deal with this media partner, you won't get a cut. Throw these logos all over the cage, you won't get a cut. Drug test you whenever you want, an hour before the weigh-ins, you won't get a cut. You won't have a say. All this stuff. It's just enough. And they'll keep doing, nothing's going to change. And I can assure you, even though they'll all disagree publicly, I can assure you that every fighter, every manager, well, maybe not every manager, but you get my point. Every fighter all feels like they would like to have a say, all feel like they want to have a voice, and they don't. They just have to do whatever they're told. They just have to do whatever they're told. So to me, when I found out about this, I wasn't really that concerned with the why. Obviously, it wasn't COVID related. I wasn't really concerned with the how, the why, the what, anything. I was just more thinking like, wow, just another thing that they could do. And this is supposed, this is the company that came out first, and we got to be open and all this stuff. And the fighters just don't have a say. And that to me is unfortunate. Because if you're Yan Xiaonan and you have someone who's coming over now, if someone's flying over from China and they're going to be there, I'd like to think that they're going to make an exception for that person. Let's not go crazy before they come out and fully explain what is going on. But here is what I'm 100% sure of. They don't have a say. If they wanted to close it off, they could close it off. If they want to do events on the moon in front of aliens, they could do that. If they want to do events at 4 a.m., they could do that. If they want to drug test you an hour before, they could do that. If they want to slap logos on you and not giving you a cut, they can do that. They could do all of that, and you won't have a say. You will have absolutely no say. That's a bummer to me. That's a bummer as someone who loves the sport and loves the fighters and knows how small their window is to make this money. And then when they're 36, 37, whatever, 38, they're left finding a new job. That's my big takeaway. I feel like for most fans, they don't care. Fine. I feel like for most media, they probably don't care. Fine. But that's my big takeaway from all of this. Also, do you think the end of the year card will have 3 titles? No. I mean, just look at it. There aren't 3. I mean, they're trying to get 1 title. Looking more and more like it's not going to be John Jones. And Dana White was asked yesterday about Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prochaska. And so cool. Figueiredo probably in Brazil. Aljo's fighting in October. Volk probably fighting first quarter. Charles fighting in October. Leon fighting, first quarter or so. Izzy fighting in November. Yuri. And Ngannou, no chance. I'd be shocked. Valentina's out there, but against 2. Carla fighting in November. Amanda out there, but against 2. Maybe it's Amanda versus Valentina. I mean, that feels like it would be a big deal. But maybe that happens in Brazil. I don't know. I think they're lucky if they get 1. Unless they do an interim. Andres, Ariel, hope you had a great holiday with the family. Thank you. 2 questions today. What is Bo Nickal's ceiling? And what did you think of his performance? Incredible how he showed his boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu in under a minute. Also, will you or the guys be watching the inaugural One Championship submission grappling title fight featuring Mikey Mesumechi? I'm butchering that. I know who he is, but I'm butchering. I'm just not. A lot of people are like, why don't you have ADCC guys? I don't watch it. The same reason I don't really watch collegiate wrestling. There's only so much. I choose to watch boxing. There's a little kickboxing. I'm aware of the NCAA wrestling championships. I don't watch grappling. I'm sorry. There's only so much that we could do. As always, there's no show like the MMA Hour. No, we tried to get Angela Lee on today. She's fighting on Friday, their second event on Amazon, but the time difference is too screwy, so that's not going to happen. As far as Bo Nickal, let's talk about Bo Nickal. Another massive win for him. He does it under a minute. He finally gets into the UFC. There is something incredibly special about this young man. And it's, with so many fighters in the sport, with so many names out there, with so many events, with so many cards, it's rare that someone with his lack of experience in MMA comes across and just breaks through. It's reminiscent, I guess, to a degree of Khamzat, like where one guy just breaks through the noise and all of a sudden you are captivated by this guy. Now, he couldn't be more different than Khamzat, did call him out, and we could talk about that in a moment. But he is an uber prospect, and these come around once every few years. And he's one that we've been hearing about for a while. Yes, he's just 3-0 in MMA as a pro, amateur a little bit, but this is a guy, I first had him on the show, the ESPN Monday show in 2019 when he announced that he was going to move over to MMA, signs with First Round Management, starts his own ATT in Happy Valley. So he's been doing this for a while. He's been in training camps. He's training with some of the best guys, the Masvidals, the Poiriers, the Mike Browns of the world. But there's something about him that just screams potential superstar. He's a professional. He comes across like a professional athlete, like a champion. It almost feels like when he's around those guys on Contender Series, it feels like he's above it all. Like he knows something that we don't know, that he is aware of his ceiling. He is aware of how good he is. He's got this confidence about him. It's not quite cockiness. It's just extreme confidence. And the guy backs it up. And I was thinking yesterday, like, when's the last time that we've seen a lot of wrestlers transition to MMA? When's the last time that we've seen a guy with his pedigree, Hodge Trophy winner, multiple-time national champion, come over to MMA and be this well-rounded? Now, of course, his fights aren't lasting long. Of course, he's not fighting the creme de la creme, although the opponent that he fought had a winning record and 7-1, I think it was, with 5 finishes. When's the last time we've seen a guy come in via wrestling with his pedigree, with his resume, show the striking? I know it's the overhand left. I know it's the move that all the wrestlers learn on day one, but he's hitting it, he's nailing it, and then shows the grappling that he does. He transitioned to 3 different subs there, finally gets the triangle. It's incredible what he's doing. It's absolutely incredible. With the poise, with the confidence, with the calmness. Yes, we've seen great wrestlers come in, but like when Brock Lesnar, for example, came in, he was just like a caveman. He didn't really know anything more than attack this guy, take him down, and then hammer fist him. Yes, we've seen Cejudo come in, but did he have that kind of pedigree or at least that skill set, I should say, that early on? Seen Cormier wasn't a national champion, Olympian. All I'm saying is it's been a long time since we've seen a prospect with this kind of ceiling. And so what is the ceiling? I think he could be a top 15 guy right now. He said he wants to fight in December. I don't know if they're going to give him that right away. It's rare that they want to push someone that quickly. They did it with Brock. They gave him Frank Mir in his first fight, and then Heath Herring when he lost, even though he lost somewhat controversially. I think he could be top 15 guys right now. I don't want to say names because guys are going to take that personally and be upset. I did see Darren Till call him out. I wouldn't like that fight if I was Darren Till. I saw that he called out Khamzat Chimaev. I'm sure they didn't love that he called out Logan Paul, especially in a WWE ring on his first official day as a UFC fighter, if you will, even though, the first fight was really under a UFC contract. I think him versus Khamzat would be super interesting. I'm not advocating it right now. You want to build this sort of thing, but you've got an American-born, American-bred, national champion wrestler from an institution like Penn State coming in and doing that. This guy could be a gigantic star. Appears to be a family guy, clean cut, but has the confidence, can talk the shit, can back it up. It's been a while since the UFC had this. It's really been a while since they had, they have done a great job of building up, of proving that you can have household names, box office names from other countries. Conor, Anderson Silva, Amanda Nunes. They have, but look at how popular Ronda Rousey was. She was, Americans, if there's one thing that I know about them, they love cheering for their own. They love cheering for their own. That's Part of the reason why I think hockey has never been as popular as the NBA or the NFL. Part of the reason why soccer has never been as popular, but it's getting more popular because the American team is getting a lot better. Point is, you got an American-born and bred guy. This guy's going to be a huge potential star. You see the way ESPN's covering him already. They've been waiting for a guy like this. A Division I champion multiple time. They can sink their teeth. They understand what that means from a Big Ten school, and he could back it up, and he's got the endorsement of the likes of Masvidal and Brown and Poirier and all the guys at ATT. This is incredibly exciting. You see the look on Dana's face. You see his reaction. It's unbelievable what he's doing, and it's unbelievable what they have. And again, I'll say it again, shame on every other promotion who didn't make a run and throw the world at this guy. You all picked the wrong guys. This was the guy that you should have been putting in your farm system, in your training camp, on your monthly salary. This was the guy. Now, benefit of hindsight, fine, 2020, I get it. But wow, one of the best prospect signings that the UFC has had in years, if you ask me. And I don't mean signing a Conor McGregor off of Cage Wars. I don't mean signing a Brock Lesnar off of WWE. I don't even mean signing a guy off of LFA. I mean, this guy had one pro fight. One pro fight. They rarely, if ever, do it. But that's the brilliance of Contender Series. It gives them a reason to do it. And it's a seamless transition into the UFC. What a freaking stud. What a stud. There's just something about him. Something real special about him. I mean, GC and I were talking about him before the show. What is it about him, GC? When you see this guy, what do you feel? What do you see?
I mean, other than how incredible he is in the octagon, it's also just the way he feels like such a professional athlete. Like the way that he carries himself that you said. It just feels like he's been polished. He's been, groomed by Penn State for this moment. Like it feels like no moment is too big for him. The way that, like, even in the interviews and stuff, the way he carries himself, he seems like he's got it all going on. I feel like the ceiling is limitless for him.
We both noted he does his interview, he shakes Laura Sanko's hand. Just little things like that. This guy has been there. He has competed.
It's like he's been trained for the media. Like he has that NBA, NFL player like aura to him. I don't know. He's fascinating to watch.
Very fascinating. Great hair. I love everything about his look.
God, that hairline is
tremendous.
Something to be jealous of.
Yeah,
it's
tremendous.
Really something.
But then you consider this guy fighting national championship highs. Like, what's the Apex going to do to him? Right? He's not going to be nervous going into these fights. He's not going to be phased at all. It's just an amazing thing to watch. And kudos to them for signing him. I mean, kudos to Malky and Abe for picking him up before his first pro fight. Kudos to ATT for recognizing that he's worth building an ATT around at Penn State, at Happy Valley. And kudos to the UFC for signing him and bringing him on the Contender Series. And I do think it has elevated the Contender Series. I didn't love the way they did the whole like wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing. I mean, you didn't think that they were behind this guy. They had him on the freaking cover of a video game. Now, I know that you can print that out in 2 seconds, but they're behind this guy. And when the UFC wants to be behind someone, you see how they push them. No one is better. If they want to push you, if they want to really sink their teeth into you and push you and market you and promote you, they could do it as well as anyone in combat sports when they want to, right? You saw it with Conor. You see it with Hamza to a degree. You see it with him. Now, some guys, they just kind of let them do their own thing and they become stars on their own. They're going to push Bo Nickal, and rightfully so. Very exciting stuff. I've spent 30 minutes on 2 questions. I should probably hurry up. James, what is up, Ariel? So despite the success of Bellator Dublin this past Friday, I can't help but feel like they are not growing as a promotion and are going to be completely passed up by the PFL and One Championship if they haven't been already. There are only a few fights/fighters in the promotion that actually entice me to watch or care about. There aren't many stars or characters, and the actual marketing and promotion for the events and fighters is almost non-existent. Do you share the same point of view? And if so, what would you do to fix or improve Bellator? How do they change things up to become more important to both casual and hardcore MMA fans? So, I do think that there is a lot of truth there. I do feel like the transition over to Showtime hasn't been as seamless as maybe, or as big as some of us, including myself, thought maybe a CBS event here. They need to get back to signing, and they're starting to do it, I feel, a little bit more. You're seeing them pick up guys from Shudo, from Ryzen, Tofik, etc. But they need to get back to that. I think what they're doing in Dublin and in the UK is good. But, PFL is coming. They did that show in London. They did that show in Wales. I don't think they really have to worry about One Championship, to be honest, because they're focused mainly on Asia, at least for now. But it feels like they need to get going a little bit. Homegrown stars. I mean, there's no real formula to all this. I have maintained from the beginning that they should have changed the name once Coker came in. I felt like that was a dead piece of wood. I didn't like the logo. I didn't like the name. I felt like there was a regime change and they needed to break free from the Bjorn era. And I think that has hung over them like a cloud, a dark cloud on a rainy day. I have often felt that for whatever reason, the public just did not connect with that marketing, with that name. I felt that from the get-go. They've got some pretty solid events coming up. But yeah, they've got to do a better job of making people aware. And there's little things like the Bellator Dublin show shouldn't be on a Friday. It shouldn't. Friday afternoon, like if you want people to be, captivated and tuned in, you got to make that on a Saturday. A Friday afternoon is just not, now, unless you just don't care, and the gate was great, and the crowd was great, and maybe their focus for that is just the Dublin crowd, the local crowd. But at least here in America, you have to do a little more. I will say, tighter show. I hope that they continue to do that. I know it's more of a European thing where they do it like they don't go to the desk as much. They need to get rid of the desk. They need to make the shows shorter, make the shows tighter, not make them as late. When they're in America, they start at 10 p.m. main card. Like the UFC did that. That was a mistake in the FS1 days. There's little tinkers. I think Coker needs to be more aggressive. I think he needs to come out. I think he needs to stir the pot. I think he needs to be a little more braggadocious, have a little more bravado, put his, flag in the ground, go after free agents. There's no real one thing that I can say. But yeah, PFL is doing some stuff now. Maybe the numbers don't back it up. We'll see with this pay-per-view. Bellator has to find their thing. They have to find their thing that separates them. For the longest time with Strikeforce, it was the women's division. The UFC didn't have it. What's their thing now? What is going to separate them from the UFC? Because there's enough UFC. You can't just be another MMA promotion anymore. There's a UFC event almost every weekend. And if there isn't a UFC event, there's some other promotion doing an event. So what's your thing that is going to be like, this is what makes us different? Because I think we all want different. It's nice tuning into a non-UFC event and being like, okay, this is different. This is fresh. This is a different kind of look, different announcers, different voice, different feel. What's going to be their thing? If not things. Red Pantoja night. Clever. Hi, Ariel. With Campbell McLaren on the show last week. By the way, GC, did you watch Combate?
No. Didn't get Univision where I was.
Am I crazy? And stop me if I'm being a hater. Am I crazy? But even us having him on and being somewhat aware, had we not spoken to him, I would have never known that this event happened. I didn't see anything break through. I didn't see a highlight. I didn't see a clip. I didn't see a face-off. I didn't see anything. Am I crazy or did you?
No, I know that the girl that he was supporting won.
La Loba
won.
Yeah, decision.
Yeah, I didn't see any highlights.
I looked for that.
Didn't see anything. Oh, you looked for it.
I was I wonder what. Oh, you saw it?
The only thing that I saw was a tweet from Campbell that said that she won. And then the TV numbers.
Right, for
I
something.
saw some stuff on Reddit.
You did?
Yeah.
Like what?
Hey, Combate's on right now.
Okay.
Did you tune in?
No.
Oh.
I was working.
Wait, you're on Reddit while you're working?
Hey, just
weird.
act like you didn't hear that.
What are you doing right now?
I'm not on Reddit. Well,
He's on
I'm not
TFA
anymore,
TK
is
right
what
now.
I meant to say.
You're manning the Friars?
Moving on.
With Campbell on the show last week, how do you feel about the future direction of each MMA promotion? Do you see Combate Global and one having more success? I mean, I asked him the question, are you building stars? And he gave me a real honest answer. I think it was, he said, we haven't built enough. You got to build stars. You have to give people a reason to tune in. And so I don't see any of that right now from them. One has their events, and I think the Amazon thing is interesting. I think they're obviously very focused on Asia. Do they want to come over here? You need a guy. You need an angle. You need a hook. You need a woman. You need someone that's going to break you through. A Bo Nickal would have been great for any of these promotions, but not happening. How about PFL, Bellator, UFC? I understand you think Bellator is missing a little something recently. Thank you. I'd love to hear what you think is going well for each promotion and what you think could present roadblocks. I think the Amazon deal is interesting for one. Let's see where it goes. They're obviously getting behind sports very much. Amazon, that is, with NFL and some other leagues. It seems like Combate is very focused on their Univision deal and that market, which is fine if that works for them. PFL, look, you didn't ask me specifically about it. I have my reservations about this pay-per-view. I'm just being honest. Now, I asked them what the price point is going to be, and they said TBA. I was told that it's going to be very reasonable and affordable. Can't imagine if that is the case, reasonable for. I can't imagine it's over 30. If it is, then it's not reasonable and affordable. I don't hate going on after Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving. People are usually home. There's a lot to compete with, though. World Cup is going to be on. There's college football, right? There's NFL. NFL's not going on the Friday. They go on the Thursday, but someone's going on.
USA England is on that Friday.
Oh, yeah, for
That's
sure.
in the afternoon.
But there's just a lot. And last few years, they've done that golf thing, the match, right, on that Friday.
Yeah. There's obviously college football.
There's college football. There's NBA. There's just a lot happening, right? But I don't mind it because most people are home that weekend, at least here in the United States. So I don't hate it. Let's see how it goes. I just would love for them to put their best foot forward. You have your biggest card of the year, and you're putting it behind a paywall. Tough. I also think it's a lot of fights. I am aware of I'll tell you this about the special attraction fight that was listed on there. It involves one mainstay and one guy who has never fought for the promotion. Now, they're trying to make this happen. It's not a done deal. That's why it wasn't in the press release. They were hoping it would be in the press release. Let's see if they pull it off. I think if they pull it off, that fight will probably get more attention than 90%, 95% of the fights on that card. Give it a bit of a bump. But I don't know, does it do 20K buys? What do you think the ceiling is at? 30K buys? I don't know. Very, 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 very rare for a non-UFC entity to get over 100K buys. I don't think that they're going to get 100. I mean, I think they would tell you they're not getting 100K. Would a success be 50? 50 is tough. So we'll see. Interesting times. People doing things. Bellator tried pay-per-view, didn't really work out. And they tried to load the deck as well. Gym leader Tom. Hello, Ariel. For a while, you had been referring to the UFC's bantamweight division as having its own Grand Prix based off the quality and quantity of the matchups they had / still have in the top 10. Now, we see the lightweight division as having 6 of the top 10 matched up against each other with Gaethje and Fiziev as a possibility. Hopefully. Seeing as these two divisions are debatably the best in the UFC, which of these Grand Prix do you see as having a bigger impact on its division, and whom do you foresee winning these upcoming matchups? Many thanks, Gym Leader Tom. The champion has a name, and it's Charles Oliveira. Yes, I agree with that. I mean, I'm not going to go over the matchups and pick winners, but I'm still, if I'm being honest, more intrigued by the bantamweight one because a lot of them are fresh guys who haven't fought for the belt before. Obviously, Oliveira, champion, not champion. Chandler's fought for the belt. Poirier's fought for the belt. Gaethje's fought for the belt. So that's 4 of the 6 guys. Still a little bit more intrigued by the bantamweight thing, and I really don't know how it's going to play out. Daniel, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Ariel. My question pertains to the heavyweight boxing scene, particularly the potential fight between AJ and Fury that was set for December 3rd until very recently. What a bummer, right? But, who didn't see this coming? I hate this stuff. Oh, deadline this, that. Like, if we're really serious about making this fight, then let's make the fight. Let's make the fight. I don't love the way this is being handled. If we're very serious about making the fight, I don't feel like there should be deadlines and stuff. And now Eddie and AJ are saying all the right things like, hey, we're not going to haggle. We're not going to negotiate. We're not going to do this. And it feels like Tyson and Queensberry are like, take it or leave it. And I don't know. I don't know who's lying at this point. I'm sure you've been following, but Fury set an arbitrary deadline for the contract to be signed by Monday, 5 p.m. GMT. AJ had already stated previously to this that he was going to sign it, that the contract was with his lawyers to review to be expected for a fight of this magnitude. So the deadline has passed, and Fury has now set his sights on Manuel Charr for the 3rd. Do you think Fury ever intended on fighting AJ? I think for sure he intended, but I feel like Charr was the guy that was always, he even told me when I saw him in Wales that he had a press conference scheduled for later that week to announce his fight. Now, what happened, I don't know, but we've been through this already with this fight. It's very frustrating, and it felt like, oh, wow, the clouds have opened up, and we're finally going to get it. Yes, it comes at a weird time. He's coming off 2 straight losses, AJ. But, hey, this is fun. We're getting it. Yay. And now we're left with it. We're not getting Usyk. We're not getting AJ. We're getting Manuel Char? Really? I'd rather get Joyce versus Fury. I don't know. I just don't like, okay, so if he needed one more day, we aren't willing to wait. If he needed 2 more days, we aren't willing to wait. Fight of that magnitude, I don't know what to believe. It's all kind of annoying. Let us know when you're ready. Newman, hello, Ariel. Hello, Newman. The featherweight title picture seems to be on hold while we wait for a clear number 1 contender to emerge for Volk. Currently, we have Arnold Allen versus Calvin Kattar scheduled for 10/29. Great fight. The Battle of the Unbeatens in Bryce Mitchell and Movsar Evloev the following week on November 5th, with both events taking place at the Raucous UFC Apex. God damn. I mean, come on. Just take my soul and just stomp on it. How is this possible? How is this okay? We're approaching 2023, all right? We're approaching 3 years since the world shut down. This can't be okay anymore. Arnold Allen and Calvin Kattar should not be fighting at the Apex. I'm sorry. Neither should Bryce Mitchell and Movsar Evloev. The other 2 fighters calling for a title shot are Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez. Do you think they will fight for the number 1 contender spot? And where does Max fit into all of this? Will his next fight be at lightweight? Please help sort this out. Max thing is TBD, up in the air. I think he's looking for big, interesting fights. I think the whole division is on hold until we find out what happens with the lightweight title and if Volk moves up to fight the champion of the 10/22 fight. And if he does, that's going to happen in the first quarter of 2023. So I'm sorry, but this is one that I don't think we're going to get an answer to in the next few weeks. I think we're just going to have to wait to see how these fights play out, and in particular, the 10/22 fight, and if they grant Volk that title fight. If they don't grant him the title fight, then it's probably Yair. If they do, then maybe you're getting an interim, or maybe you're getting these guys fighting each other a couple times until Volk is ready to return. Jordan. Sub Ariel, what is going on with Sarah McMahon and Aspen Ladd? I saw the Twitter roster bot remove and add Sarah and then remove Aspen yesterday. Did Aspen get cut for the weight misses? Yes, Aspen 100% is no longer in the UFC. She did part ways. I spoke to her briefly, not ready to speak at the moment, but I do think she has plans, so she's not retiring. The Sarah McMahon thing, up in the air. Wouldn't be surprised if she moves on. Wouldn't be surprised if she comes back. But the Aspen thing is like, look, you need to go. And honestly, if I'm the PFL, I'm trying to sign her. If I'm Bellator, you know, one of the things I want to ask Scott about is like, are you guys still in the Cyborg business? Cyborg fought in boxing on Sunday, won her pro boxing debut. Cyborg versus Aspen is cool. I'd honestly feel more comfortable with Aspen fighting at 55. Just give her that buffer. Or have Kayla come down to 45. But sometimes we've seen it. We saw it with Anthony Johnson. Someone has trouble making weight, then goes up, and they have trouble with the next one just because, for whatever reason, they don't have the discipline or their body's just acting all weird. I don't know. I feel uncomfortable. I don't know about you guys with like all the jokes about her weight and her, you know, like we have no idea how hard this is. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not defending her. You sign to fight at a weight, be a professional, make the weight. But I don't know. I have a hard time with some dudes who have never been to the gym before in their lives cracking jokes on someone who is missing weight by a pound or 2. There's a different way to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? There's a different way to talk about it. There's a more respectful and professional way to talk about it. If you ask me, very easy for us to crack jokes on Twitter. So, I don't know. Is it unprofessional? 100%. There can't be any excuses after multiple misses. And it's probably in her best interest to A, move up, and B, do it elsewhere with less pressure on her shoulders. She needs to fight at 45. She needs to fight maybe away from the limelight a little bit, although her versus Kayla would be a really fun, fresh matchup. There was a time where we all thought Aspen was going to be a future title contender. Remember, she had that aggression. She had that, she's yelling. Patrick, favorite segment of the week. 2 quick questions. Ariel, what are your thoughts on Gordon Ryan? He's a big boy. He's dominating his respective sport with a sort of WWE-like persona and is unapologetic about it. He seems to be over with most of the fans. GC, any merch updates? Yes, GC?
Yeah, there are updates.
None that you could share.
Yeah, I guess what people need to know is that it is out of our hands.
But things are happening. So
things
just-
are happening. Things
yeah.
are happening. We've done everything we can on our end. It's just a waiting game now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully, sooner rather than later.
All right. How about that? Sooner rather than later. As for Gordon Ryan, again, I don't really follow grappling all that much, but I'm aware of him. He's got the look. He's got the persona. This is good. This is what you need. You need those personalities. It's really what I'm talking about with Bellator and PFL. And like, you need those guys. You need those guys who know how to promote. You need those guys who are able to talk shit and back it up. And he does. So God bless. Adriano. Hi, Ariel. Wanted to get your thoughts on the comments made by Khabib in regards to Khamzat not having the correct people around him. Does this have something to do with Khamzat leaving Ali and he could be pushing dominant MMA fighters to badmouth him to try to hurt his brand? Thank you for allowing the fans to have a platform to talk to you. I do know that part of the reason why Khamzat left dominance was because him and Khabib just weren't on the same level and there was some uncomfortableness there. But honestly, I mean, you'd have to ask Khabib, you know, his thoughts on him. But yeah, that was, I mean, that's a big fish to lose. And I do know that they're not the best of friends. Why that is, I don't know. But that's what I know. Ariel, what do you think should be next for Tai Tuivasa? Oh, thank you for telling me about Tai Tuivasa or asking me about him. I just got this in the mail today. Thank you very much, Tai. We got the Tuivasa here. There it is. I believe you put it like this, right? You've had this before, right, GC? What happens? You put it here, and then you open the valve. What do you do?
Yeah.
You use this as like the straw?
You turn the valve the wrong way. Definitely don't use it as a straw. No, that's for the air in the thing. Though sometimes I struggle. The liquid comes out the back end. You had it right. Then the knob on the side.
The knob on the side?
Go grab another prime. Let's get you to Tuivasa prime on the air.
Listen, I'm not some
Come on,
jabron.
man.
I mean, every jabron in the business at this point has done a Tuivasa. Yeah.
A Tuivasa? They've done a Shui.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know about a Tuivasa.
Also,
I mean, you're just supporting
you know
your
as
friend
well as
Tai.
anyone, this is going to get all over me. And I'm gonna be
It's
sitting
going
here.
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's difficult, especially for a
Where do you drink it out of?
newcomer
Like right
you.
here?
Yeah, right over there. Like, look, turn the thing. Yeah, that opens the faucet essentially.
Okay.
Once it's open, it's tough sledding from there.
Yeah, it seems like.
We're gonna have to get you to do one. I've done coffee. I've done obviously alcoholic beverages on the side. I've done
You have?
Perrier.
Perrier. I feel
That's
like
what I did on. That's what I did for UFC Paris.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's a video. Did good numbers, everything.
Yeah.
I guess you didn't see it.
No, I didn't. By the way, the Tai Tuivasa video of him standing outside, I actually, I swear to God, I go back to that video sometimes.
Where he gives out his bets.
Yes. Hello, everyone. This is, it's so good. Have you seen this video, Frank?
No, I have not.
This is Ty giving out his UFC, what was it? Not UFC Paris. Was it UFC? No, UFC 279 picks, the Nate Diaz card, right? He's standing outside of the Eiffel Tower. He's still in Paris. He's got shades on. He's got this fresh jacket, and he's giving picks.
He's smoking a blunt, isn't he?
Yeah.
Fresh out.
His eyes are both
We've got the
messed
UFC
up.
279. We've got Hazmat versus Nate Diaz.
Hazmat.
Well, what a fight. I think it's going to be sick. I'm a fan of both, but I'm going to say for old time's sake, I'll go Diaz. Then we got
This is great.
Jing Lang versus Ferguson. I reckon
Butchers his
Jing
name.
Lang is going to give him a little bing bang, you know what I mean? Then you got Holland and Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Holland. He's a funny cunt, makes me laugh. Then we got
The reason.
Irene
Aladina.
versus Macy Gray, Macy Hay.
Macy Gray, Macy Hay. Smoking a
Johnny
blunt.
Walker and Cut Liver.
Yeah.
Go
trying.
Johnny Walker. SA. BetOnline.ag.
Okay, so the best part about this is he posts this after the whole card changed.
Nice.
So the caption is, so they changed the whole card, but essays UFC 279 is going down. So none of these picks meant
None
anything.
of them are valid.
Not that they would, I mean, like his reasoning, but the whole delivery of that video is just incredible.
The Macy analysis was top-notch stuff.
Macy Shacey. So anyway, shout out to Ty. Thank you for the Tuivasa. We shall use it. I just need to get the hand. I don't want to sit here for the next 3 hours soaking wet. Iman, Ariel, what do you think should be next for Ty? It's a good question. I haven't really thought of it. Let's see what's going on here. Heavyweight. Right now, there's Pavlovich. I mentioned Jairzinho. I think he has a fight coming up. Yeah. Dawkins, one of those guys. Blagoy, bounce back fight. Which would you rather? Knicks NBA title, Bills NFL title, Forrest Premier League title. And then Lewis mentions Forrest won the league in 1977-78. Of course, I knew that, Lewis, but thank you. So they at least have won their one title. Knicks have won two, by the way, 70 and 73. Also won the league in their first season after being promoted. I'm not going to say it's happening. A bit of a rough patch. We're just trying not to get relegated. We're just trying to get through this season, not relegated, and then we'll work on next season. That's what I think is an acceptable type of goal and mission for this year. What would I rather? Golly. Very hard to pick. Right now, I would say the Bills for multiple reasons. That franchise has had a lot of heartache over the last 30 years. So have the Knicks, of course. But I would say that a Bills Super Bowl win would mean a lot more to Western New York and Buffalo in particular than a Knicks win. Now, a Knicks win, I think the Knicks winning would mean more to New York City than a Yankees win, World Series win, a Rangers Stanley Cup win, obviously Nets, and all those other jabroni teams. Because, A, we've seen them win in the last 20, 30 years, but there's just a lot going on, and New Yorkers have a lot going on. Like, everything about Buffalo are the Bills. And obviously there's the Sabres, but the Bills are so close, and there's been so much heartache and so many, close finishes, if you will, near falls. Yeah, I think the Bills won. I have to say, I was saying this before the show, like that loss on Sunday really affected me. I was affected by that loss. All the injuries, seeing them struggle, the heat, the freaking Dolphins who I hate. I mean, you look at the stats and you got these annoying MFers like Maki and Abe and all these annoying people on Twitter really like, oh, how about them Dolphins? Again, you're all cute. We're all going to win. You all know who the better team is. You know who's going to win the AFC East. You know that when we play you up in Orchard Park, we're going to kick your ass. But, to lose to the Heat, like you lost, we lost to the weather. We didn't look at the stats, 500 to 200 total yards. I mean, just look at the stats. It wasn't even close. Half our defense missing, and we lost to the Heat, cramping up and everything. Oh, well, the Dolphins, they played in the same Heat. Yeah, well, you guys are used to it. Plus, they put us on the sidelines. The sun just kind of like in our faces, It was a joke. But I was pissed. I thought that they were going to win by 14 at least. 17. BS. Anyway, to answer the question, Bills. I think it's the Bills. So close. I just want one. I just want to know. That ruined my day. I was like, man, I need to figure out a way to not care as much as I do. I was so mad. You know what happened, by the way? I was so mad that I left the room after they missed on fourth down and the Dolphins got the ball back. And then I was so mad, I was like stewing. And then my kids ran back and told me that the dude punted the ball in the other guy's butt. And they thought it was hilarious. They're like, he just hit him in the butt. I was like, what are you talking about? Went back, and then I got my hope. I was already starting to come down, and then I got my hopes up again. It's horrible. Wow. TST question, guys. This is big. The great Troy Farkas. Greetings, Mr. Helwani. So, I have about 10 different career goals right now. There's so many things I want to do, but I'm spreading myself thin by trying to accomplish all these goals at the same time. In doing so, I actually end up accomplishing none of them because I can't give the proper time/energy required since there's only one of me who's trying to get all of this done at the same time. As someone like yourself who works for so many different people doing so many different things. How do you make sure that you're still giving the appropriate amount of time / energy / focus to each task and that you're actually doing a good job? Well, that is a great question. It's all about time management and the amount of focus and attention that you give everything. So by now, you should know, like, oh, to be the best that I could be at this particular job, I need to give this much of this kind and this amount of TLC to this job. Now, some jobs don't require as much as the others. Some just require an hour of your time. Some require 5 hours of your time. It's all very different. But what I would do is prioritize which jobs mean the most to me, which goals mean the most to me, which one would give me the most joy, nachas, fulfillment. You prioritize that. Even with something as simple as like writing down on a piece of paper, number 1, this one, number 2, this one. And then you start dividing up your week, not necessarily your day, because you can't do everything in one day, but your week. So there's 7 days in the week. Tuesday's going to be my day for this. Wednesday's going to be my day for this. Thursday's going to be my day for this. I feel like I've gotten it down pretty good where I'm like, okay, on this day, I'm going to focus on this. On this day, I'm going to focus on that. Then some days you're focusing on multiple things, and those are hectic days. But if you organize it and don't just let it be a thing in your mind where you're constantly having this internal battle where, hey, I need to do this, but I'm not doing this. And if I'm doing this, I'm not paying attention to this. Then you're going to drive yourself crazy. Look at the week, divide every day, make sure every day is, dedicated to the right job and you're giving and allotting the right amount of time to that job. And then you move on. And then, all right, Monday, hey, Monday's over. Did I do a good job? Great. Check in at the end of the night. Did I give it enough time, enough effort? Cool. Now Tuesday is the next. Don't let the Monday thing bleed into Tuesday. Tuesday's now devoted to this job. And we're going to do the best at that on Tuesday. We're going to win that day. And then we're going to try to win Wednesday. And that's the way I almost look at every day like a win or a loss. Did I win this day? Did I do the best that I could on this day? Did I exceed my expectations? Did I go a little extra? Did I give a little extra? Did I do something that surprised me or others? I like to do that at the end of the day, kind of check in and see how I did. So I know TST, I know he has it in him. He's got big plans, lofty goals. Divide your week. And even if it's a 6-day week, a 7-day week, whatever it is, I don't know how many things he's got on his plate. But devote each day to a job or multiple jobs and stick to that. I like routine. I like knowing what I'm doing every Wednesday. I like knowing what I'm doing every Thursday. Now, there's the off week here where you're going to travel, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But I like the routine because when I get into that routine, I get into a flow. Christian, Ariel, keen for your thoughts on Aaron Bronstedter's report that Conor McGregor is the only active fighter on the UFC's roster to not be tested by USADA this year. Is there any more to this other than coincidence? Seems dicey. People like Travis Brown have been tested this year, but not him. Appreciate you and the team. Definitely seems dicey. Don't understand why the Travis Browns of the world would be tested at this point. That makes no sense to me. Would love to get an explanation as to why this is. If you're asking me, have I looked into it? No. Was Rosh Hashanah and all that stuff, and I was kind of off the grid a little bit, but that's not any kind of excuse. Aaron is a tremendous broadcaster, and I believe his report. And that probably took a while to, cross-reference. And yeah, not a great look. But I have felt from the beginning that USADA was, mired in all kinds of holes, if you will. And it felt like the goalposts were always being moved, whether it was for Brock, whether it was for John Jones, whether it was now. I mean, when's the last event that was affected by USADA suspension? We saw a bunch of them at the beginning. When's the last time that happened? Isn't that a little weird? Who's the last big name that we saw got popped? Is everyone just clean all of a sudden? Have a hard time believing that. Have a hard time believing that it was affecting so many main events. Now you could say, all right, maybe the fighters have learned. Maybe there's an education process. Maybe there's a learning curve, all that stuff. I just have a hard time believing it. And my one issue with USADA has always been from the get-go. This has been consistent from the get-go. Obviously, a clean sport is paramount. Obviously, that's what we all want. But I hate the fact that the fighters have never gotten a say in the matter. I've never gotten a say in how many times they're drug tested, how many times they're, coming to their house, how many times what time, when, all that's the kind of stuff that I talk about when I talk about collective bargaining. That's the important stuff. employees at the UFC aren't tested 24/7, 365. Employees. Why should the contractors be? Now, I understand the employees aren't fighting in a cage, but you get what I'm saying? The contractors are being monitored via an app that they have to update 24/7, and the employees don't. Seems weird to me. Seems backwards. So there's a ton of issues there. The Connor one is one that they have to answer for and answer to, and I would love to hear that answer. I would love to hear the explanation. Number 14, Zoobs. Ariel, several of your recent interviews have had fighters speak very candidly about their struggles in life or generally deeper subjects, whether it be mental health, difficult upbringings, mistakes they made, or spirituality. Aside from your S-tier interview skills, what's S-tier mean? Is that a good thing? To bring these discussions out of people, what do you attribute this willingness to show vulnerability to? Is it a recent trend you've noticed? And if so, when or why do you think it has started to be more common, a more common part of the conversations fighters are willing to have? It feels the veneer of the impenetrable and unflappable fighter that isn't affected by anything is given way to more human and relatable stories. I think for the better. Keep up the great work and incredible interviews. Honestly, I've always been interested in this side of things, and I think I've always been asking it even before it was sort of en vogue to talk about these things. But yes, I think not just fighters, but athletes, public people, regular people have all been, I think, a lot more open and comfortable in talking about these types of issues. I love talking about it, especially with fighting and fighters. It's such a psychological and mental game. I think the mental side of the game is just as interesting, if not more interesting, than the physical side of the game. How you come back from a loss, how you get up for a fight, how you prepare for a fight, the ups, the downs, the setbacks, the milestones, the big moments, all this stuff. I mean, it's just incredibly mentally taxing. And that's why I say things like, oh, it's easy to joke about Aspen Ladd's weight, but we don't really take into account like the mental anguish and the mental struggles that she is dealing with every time she misses weight, falls short, struggles. That sometimes is more detrimental than the actual physical pain that she is going through. So yeah, all this stuff has been of great interest to me, personally and professionally. And obviously, I spoke about talking to someone when I was trying to figure out what I would do potentially post ESPN, where I felt like the end was near, but I wasn't really sure whether I would go or stay. Would I be staying for the right reasons? Would I be doing a disservice to myself? I needed to figure that out. I needed to get happier. I needed to figure out what I wanted in life. And so that helped me, and other people can talk to someone for a lot of other different reasons. So yeah, I'm just interested in the topic. I've always been drawn to that topic. And I love the fact that fighters are open to speaking about those sorts of things. Hugo asks, hey, Ariel, do you think Mike Goldberg will be in the Hall of Fame, and any reason he is not in already? I mean, add him to the list. Yes, I think he should be in there. I don't really see why he wouldn't be in there. They parted ways with him. He hasn't really crapped on them on the way out. I would like to think one day that he would be in there. So yes, I will say yes. He's not one of these guys who I think is on bad terms. I know there were a couple of uncomfortable moments towards the end, but Mike Goldberg should 1,000% be in the UFC Hall of Fame. Pick a wing. And he was a big part of the sport. Those Spike days were huge for the company. And there was a time where WWE tried to steal Mike Goldberg away when they moved over to, I think it was when they went back to USA, or maybe when they went to Spike. 2005 or 6, and then he went and stayed with the UFC, which was the right call. He was much better suited for the UFC and for MMA than pro wrestling. But WWE was looking to make a splash. They had an opening. Jim Ross was out, and we've seen as of late, it's so hard to make that transition. Nevertheless, I think he should 1,000% be in there. I hope he's in there, and it can't come soon enough, if you ask me. Ahmad, salam alaikum, Ariel. Wa alaikum salam. I know it's not a very popular topic on your show, but what do you think about the latest news in the YouTuber boxing community? KSI versus Woodley looks likely. Deji, KSI's little brother, is officially fighting Mayweather, and Logan Paul is likely fighting Dylan Downs. I mean, this is a crazy world, and it would be silly for me to look down on it. I mean, Woodley being a part of this world now all of a sudden is crazy. He's like a character in this world. Anthony Taylor, a character. All these kind of disciples of the Jake Paul orbit. It's all very strange. Mayweather is a part of this world, fighting the younger brother of KSI. Tommy Fury is a part of this world. It's like this little TV show with these casts of characters, and they all kind of fight each other. And it's incredibly profitable. It's incredibly popular. Does it last forever? No. But right now it's a big deal, and it's doing good business for everyone involved, and it's selling tickets, and there seems to be a demand. And it's a little weird, but hey, kudos to all involved. Get that money. I mean, I'm not really against it. As long as it's, fair fights, people who are matched up correctly, it's not mismatches, it's not dangerous. Can't deny the interest. And I do like the fact that it is exposing combat sports to a younger audience. And you just hope that it's for the right reasons. And you hope that the matches are fair and on the up and up and safe, and no one's getting seriously hurt, and no one has just yet. I'm never going to say that it's the equivalent of, Crawford Spence or anything like that, but there's clearly a market for it. So who am I to hate on it? No Soup for You asks, juicy question number 4. Hi, Ariel. This one is a good one, and it's short and simple. What does the wonderful Mrs. Helwani and the kids think of Dana White and his treatment towards you? Maybe the kids are too young to understand, but when he mocked you for crying or took away the Showtime gig, what does Mrs. Helwani say to you? Dare I ask what the great Mama Knows makes of all of it, too? Take care, team. No Soup for You. I'll tell you, Mama Knows is a fighter, and obviously I'm her son, and she probably reads too much and spends too much time online and looks at a lot of the comments, and would often early in my career like get upset about some of the stuff, even some of the stuff with Rampage and Czech Congo and all that. I would think less so these days, and obviously your parents are going to be concerned. But no, I mean, look, they're not the biggest fans. I think my older kids, like my boys, know a little bit about the Dana stuff because they hear me talking about it at times, and they probably know that he doesn't like their dad very much. But yeah, I mean, what do you think they think? They're not huge fans. It's weird. Like that was one of the most. I say upsetting, not in a way like, oh, it made me sad. Like that was the most upset, mad I ever got was when he even referenced my family, because like there's a line, shows that he has no line, but like you don't, I would never talk about someone's family. I would never talk about in that way, even referencing them, because there's a lot that I could say, and kind of, turn the tables, but I would just never do that. That's not, I mean, there's a line, but just goes to show, among many things, the differences between us. So, that was at that moment, like that's when in my mind I was like, all right, this is different. This is weird, but you kind of let that stuff roll off your back. And I obviously don't talk to them about it all that much, and there's no real need to these days. So yeah, in short, not a big fan, not their favorite. One fun story was those days back in the day where, remember when Dana was going to that, what was that frozen yogurt place, Pinkberry, and he would do these meetups, like tweet, like, hey, I'm going to be at Pinkberry and everyone should come, you get tickets. One time I was living in New York City right next to it, like I don't know, 5 blocks away from the Pinkberry, 10 blocks away. And so I went with my wife, and I had one of those flip camera thingies, and we actually recorded an interview with me sitting next to him at the Pinkberry, but we had no microphone, and the audio was horrible, and I went back home, and I listened to it, and I was devastated. That's the one time that my wife acted as my camera woman or camera person for any kind of interview. It was a Dana White interview at Pinkberry. Those were the days, the good old days, when we were all such good friends. Oded, Ariel, going to the original UFC 196 main event, who do you think was going to win, Conor or RDA? I thought and still think that RDA's pressure would have made the difference. Man, Conor was on a roll back then, man. He was on a roll. He was fighting at a different level. And then look what happened afterwards, RDA and Eddie Alvarez. And then look what happened afterwards, Eddie and Conor. Yes, I know MMA math is a different beast and it doesn't apply, but Conor was just feeling himself. He was on a different kind of level. So I don't know. Gun to my head, I say Conor wins that fight. coming off that knockout on top of the world. Yes, I know he lost to Nate, but Nate was a different fighter, a bigger fighter. And if we're doing this like alternate universe where, Conor said he was sick, I don't know, who knows what's the truth. But everything's equal. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's good. I think Conor wins that fight just because he was operating at such a different level at that point. Crazy time. It's a crazy sliding doors thing to talk about. If that fight happens, you never get the Nate fight. Who knows? Do they do a rematch there? Probably not. Does the MSG fight happen? Does the moment happen with MSG? Does he fight at UFC 2? Like, there's so many what ifs. Does Nate become the star that he becomes? Does Eddie ever get the title? Who does Conor fight at MSG? Who fights at 200? Does the John Jones suspension happen at 200? Does Brock Lesnar come back if Conor's on that 200 card? I mean, just an incredible amount of things. It's a real, you remember that movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow, I think it was? That's like the greatest sliding door. 2016, I mean, if there isn't a movie made about that year in MMA, and in particular March to August, someone dropped the ball. Jason Osada, good morning, Ariel. 2 years ago, I was working as the bartender in downtown Seattle when I lost my job to COVID. I found myself in my mid-40s not knowing what to do. 2 years later, I'm an amateur chocolatier running a small business. Now my days are filled with dipping chocolate strawberries and making hot cocoa bombs. Sounds fun. I absolutely love what I do, and I just want to let people know it's never too late. I'm 49 years old, and I'm just getting started. Whether you're a former fighter or a listener who is down on their luck, just know that your next passion is around the corner. P.S. This show is so healthy, the mortality experts give it another 40 years. Nice one. I know what you're talking about. Lewis says that I thought that this was great and symbolic of the great community and people that follow you. I appreciate that, Lewis. Yeah, I love that. I love that he just wrote that without a question or anything like that. And it's true. And I say this to a lot of people I know, I'm too old. I'm 34, I'm 35, I'm 40. Howard Cosell was a lawyer in his early 40s, and he ended up becoming the greatest sports broadcaster, arguably, of all time, especially combat sports. Legend. Look at this guy. Look at Jason, 49, and he just started 2 years ago. It's never too late. And if you sit around saying it's too late, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. You can pivot, you can change. And obviously there are factors, there's responsibilities, there's family. I get all those things, but you have to be willing to take a chance and not be afraid of failure. And at the end of the day, if you're 85 and say to yourself, you know what, at least I went down that path. At least I dared to be great. At least I wasn't afraid of failure. At least I wasn't afraid of stumbling. I lived a, fulfilled life. But if I look back when I'm 85 and say to myself, man, should have taken that chance. Should have gone for it when I was 40, when I had the opening, when I had the chance. You don't want to live with regret. No one wants to live with regret. That's the worst feeling. So I love this, Jason. Thank you for sharing it with us. Good luck. I would love to try one of those chocolate strawberries hot cocoa bombs. Sounds fantastic. Jeez Louise.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well done. I could use one of those right about now. Aaron Pete, salutations, Ariel. I host the Bigger Than Me podcast, which goes out on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Well done. I do my best not to focus too much on the stats, but I do want to see growth. It got me thinking about your comments about topping episodes. Do you base success purely on the energy you feel afterwards, or do you also glance at your stats? Thank you for all that you do and your valuable insights. I wish I didn't look at the stats. I'll tell you this much. I don't even know how to look at the podcast stats, and I'm happy about that. And everyone can attest that I've never asked. You see the YouTube numbers, and if they're accurate, great. But our thing is splintered so much because there's the YouTube show, and then there's the breakouts, and then there's all the podcast stuff. So I don't really know how many people consume the show. You see that number, and you're like, okay, I guess this was a good show, a bad show. I don't know. But I would love to live in a world where you never looked at any numbers. No numbers were available to you, and you would just go about your merry way. I also am thankful that I live in a world where everything is digital, because if I was working in the 1970s, you would do a broadcast, it would go off into the ether, and you would never see that again. I could go back and look at a show that I did in 2012, 2013, 14, 15. It's all there. It's all just living there. And so I'm very thankful for that, as opposed to someone who, worked 30 years ago, and it's very hard to retrieve anything that you did. So there's the good and the bad. You take them both. You try not to focus too much, but it is a gauge on really like the interest. I think this show in particular, you know, if there's interesting fighters, but you try not to hang your hat on that. I know John Hathaway isn't a household name to the fans of today, but I mean, that's a great story, and that's a guy from back in the day, and I don't just book based off of who I think is going to like pop the number. You can't do that. You go based off the news, and you always want to try to get the biggest names possible, but, you know, not everyone's going to be Nate Diaz. That's impossible. And you hope that people just enjoy the show and the conversations. Even the best thing is, even if they don't know about the guest, they're just tuning in because they trust that it's going to be a good show, regardless of if they know them or are emotionally invested in them. And then you have the banter and you have everything. Yada, yada, yada. By the way, the next couple weeks are a bit weird as we have 2 questions left here. We're back on Monday, but then we're off next Wednesday because of Yom Kippur. And then we're off the following Monday because of Indigenous Peoples Day. So you get us for 2 shows, then we're off for 2 shows. So make note of that, please. But it's a quiet time in the MMA. Is this kind of like our off season?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. El Peruanos. Hola, Ariel. Oh, this is a knock on, not a knock, but like playing off of El Cubano, right? He's from Peru, Peruanos.
Yeah, very clever. You picked up on that.
Yeah. You've shared often about Mama Knows' passion and following of MMA. How much does the rest of the original Helwani clan care and or pay attention to MMA? P.S. Your sister's guest appearance was great. She should come back on. Thank you. I was just with her yesterday and all weekend long. It was great being back home. I would be lying if I said the rest of my family really care too much about MMA like my mom. Like my mom could talk to you about GSP. My mom went to a few fights. She went to UFC on Fox 3. She went to the UFC one headlined by GSP versus Carlos Condit and GSP versus Nick Diaz in Montreal. So she's been around long time. My older brother is so he's not anti-MMA, but he didn't let his oldest son follow me on Instagram for the longest time just because of the stuff that I posted was a little too gruesome for him. Now, obviously, that's changed. He's in his teens. My middle brother, second brother, I don't know what you would call it, like the one right above me in the rankings, so to speak, in the order, in the pecking order, is aware of some stuff, is a big sports fan. Both my brothers are sports fans. They were just never big combat sports fans. I would say the middle one, David, more of a combat sports fan. We would watch the big boxing matches. He would sometimes watch wrestling with me, sometimes, but more into basketball, football. Older brother more into football, hockey, basketball. I was the one who was really into everything. Basketball, football, baseball, hockey, but then super into combat. My brothers were not into wrestling at all, really. And not really into MMA, not really. And my dad is like aware of some of the stuff and actually like follows me on all the social media and sends me stuff. But, you know, my dad is aware of all the stuff that I've done in my career and some of the characters, but they're not staying up to watch. Like my mom has legit stayed up to watch fights, or at least woken up at 11 or 12 to watch fights. So she is definitely the biggest fan of the bunch. No doubt about it. My wife has watched a few, but that was when we were living in a small apartment where she couldn't really escape it. It's a lot easier for her to escape it now. Taco Enthusiast closes us out. Hi, Ariel. I really enjoyed listening to Chuck Mindenhall talk about the early years of the UFC on the Room Service Diaries podcast. His candid accounts of Dana White being a relentless promoter and advocate for the sport and company, perhaps to a fault, really broke the fourth wall a bit for the fans in the best way. I'm curious about your interactions with Dana in the pre-UFC 100 days. What was he like as a promoter working hard to keep a company afloat? Did you have any hunch in those days that your relationship may turn sour? Would love some story time from you about the good old days and your thoughts on the Dana White of that era. Well, the first time, I feel like I've told the majority of these stories before, but, you know, I couldn't get into the UFC events when I was working for Versus and AOL and MMA Rated, especially early on. And it was Kevin Aioli of Yahoo Sports that told Dana, hey, there's this kid who has this journalism degree. You should let him in. And the first event, it was actually like at the 11th hour that they finally let me in. It was UFC 97 in Montreal. weirdly enough that it was in Montreal. It was the first event that I got to cover as a legit media guy. I went to Tough 5 finale for SpikeTV.com, but I was sitting in the back and didn't really partake in any of the media stuff. I produced the Tough 3 finale for SpikeTV.com. We did a pre-show, but again, that wasn't like me working for an outlet. So in my mind, 97 was the first. And that was big because it was Montreal. Chuck Liddell was on the card. Anderson Silva was on the card. Shogun was on the card. And I remember there was this media thing for a video game. I think it was a THQ event. And I waited in line for a legit 45 or so minutes, got to the front of the line. Dana White was there to do an interview with him. And my microphone XLR cable broke, died, I don't know what. Jumped into a card, freaked out. He said, don't worry about it. That's the first time I met him. Said, don't worry about it. I'll be here, to his credit. Went into the car, drove to some AV store, bought a new one, came back, and he was there. And that was my first interview ever for Versus.com. It was with Dana, my first interview with Dana. And it's not up because that website no longer exists. So it's not like you can find it on YouTube. Again, what I'm talking about, right? Working 30 years ago, you do an interview and it just kind of disappears. So I'm thankful for YouTube and having the majority of my stuff up there. So that was my first interaction with him. That was 97. 98, I also attended for Versus.com. I don't remember if I interviewed him. 99 was in Germany. 100 was obviously in Vegas. Don't remember if I did a one-on-one. 101 was in Philly. I didn't go to that. 102 was in... 101 was in Philly. I didn't go because there was a WC event the next night, and I was working for Versus. 102 was in Portland, and I didn't go to that. Why? Because I attended a celebrity media day at the US Open, and that's where I interviewed Justin Bieber and Will Ferrell. Imagine that. I chose to go to that over UFC 102 in Portland. And still to this day, I've not gone to Portland, and I've always wanted to go there. 103 was in Dallas, and that was actually during Rosh Hashanah, so I didn't go to that. Same night as, I think it was Marquez Mayweather. Yeah, I think it was that, and Vitor Rich Franklin. Then 104 was when I really started the run. 104 was my first event working with Esther and Casey. That was in LA, and we waited at a mall to interview him. And 105 was in England, but then from 106 on, like I didn't miss one for a while. I think I went to like 40 something straight. I think the next one that I missed was 45 or something like that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it was incredible. He was the most accessible, open, interesting promoter / head of a sports organization out there. He would do the press conference. He was engaging. He was interesting. He was fired up. He was fiery, passionate. Then he would do a scrum where he would sit there and talk to you about anything that's going on in the sport, good, bad, ugly, go off on people. Then he would do one-on-one interviews with a bunch of people. And I kind of started the trend. And then all of a sudden they became like this long line of people. And he would do that on the Thursday before, and then he would do that on the Saturday night afterwards. I mean, it was an amazing amount of time that we had with him. And when there were really interesting, juicy things going on, I mean, he was as accessible as anyone. And I've said this before, even if my career, I mean, at this point, you know, it's been 6 years, but there was a stretch there where I said, like, if I never talked to him again, I would have talked to him probably more than anyone in the sport. Very accessible, very open. And, you know, it's just the way the cookie crumbles, the way things shake out. But I do feel, by the way, that we're seeing a bit of a different side of Dana these days, like a more relaxed side, a more reflective side. I even saw him yesterday talking about when I leave. He says he's not going away anywhere, but like when I leave, and you know, you would never hear him say even any of that 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, this was a guy who was like fighting. He wasn't a fighter, but he was fighting for his company. He was fighting for his place in the sports world. He was fighting for the contracts. He was fighting for, you know, their rights deals, their coverage. Everything was a fight. And it was fascinating to cover. I mean, I would always say, like, wow, imagine we had like a boring head of the sport or head of the biggest organization in sport. Like, it would make the job a lot less fun, but he definitely made the job interesting. Then over time, get a little closer, things get entangled, if you will, get a little dicey, you get phone calls, a little too close, bad things happen. But during that, I look back on 2009, 2010, 2011. I look back from the period of 2009 to 2012, so pre-Fox deal starting, with great fondness. Amazing. Like, that's probably when I was the freest, right? Like, I had no ties to anything. I was just out there doing things, traveling to all these cool places. And the fights were great, and it felt like the sport was really taking a turn. And 2011 was incredible. 2010 was incredible. Then 12 to 16 was weird feelings because of the Fox deal. 16, you're free. 16 to 18, I thought was some of our best work. 18, then ESPN. Obviously, we've talked about that. And then back here for 21. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy ride. But guess what? You ain't seen nothing yet. But baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. Sing with me, Frank. But baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. Dun, dun. But baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. Bum, bum. All right, we're out of time.